Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of the Go-Getters. It's opening week for the Bucks, and we're coming to you from their headquarters to talk about their upcoming season and how they've made a splash since the new ownership group took over. I've got Lasry, the VP, and Dustin Godsey, the CMO. Welcome to the show. Thank you for having us. Awesome. Let's start with your backgrounds. Both of you took kind of unique plans to end up with the Milwaukee Bucks and where you're at now. Dustin, can we get the cliff notes on your story?
So grew up in Iowa, Midwest kid. Ended up doing a couple years of minor league baseball internships. So it's kind of how I got into the sports world, and then ended up on the arena side out in Philadelphia, overseeing the marketing for the Wells Fargo Center, and then all the arenas that the company I worked for managed on the East Coast. So got my fair share of the family shows and concerts and kind of the arena world. And then had an opportunity to move back to the Midwest, get back into sports, and I ended up with the Bucks here in 2012. So entering my 5th season with the team.
Nice. Alex?
So I my way into sports is a little less conventional. I started off at the White House working for the president, and then and worked at Goldman for about a year. And I was at business school, and I was probably getting ready to go back into politics when my dad became one of the principal owners of the Bucks. And so that's how I ended up in sports. I'm not sure I would have ended up here any other way, but I've always been a big fan. Always been a big basketball fan. I kind of played my whole life, and obviously my dream was always to be to work for the Knicks. But now now I'm in Milwaukee, and a much better organization, in my opinion.
Nice. So the question I have for you is, you're going to NYU, you're at the White House or at Goldman in politics. When your dad was one of the owners who purchased the team, was it much of a question? Because you can have a pretty fun life staying in New York City, or was it just, okay, we're going to Milwaukee?
Yeah, for me, look, I grew up in New York. I love New York. It's a great city, but I've never had an issue not living there. I lived in D.C. for a few years. I lived in Philly when I was in college. So for me, what I'm doing has always been more important than where I'm living. I think one of the great things about having this opportunity is being able to see a different type of culture and a different type of lifestyle. I've lived on the East Coast my whole life, whether D.C., Philly, or New York, and being able to come to the Midwest and seeing what that's like has been a ton of fun and a great experience. And I've grown to love Milwaukee. I'm starting to lay down my roots here. Just bought a place in the city, so see myself being here for a really long time.
Nice. And you being a Knicks fan, Dustin, I know you're working out in Philly for a while. How was the transition to becoming a Milwaukee Bucks fan? I've kind of wondered that as a diehard fan if I went and worked for a different team.
I guess it's a little different when you own one of the teams. Right. So that made it a little bit easier. Now, it was definitely really weird going through my closet and tossing all the Knicks gear that I had. And there was a lot of Knicks gear. Every year I would always buy new T-shirt or something to make sure I was ready for the season. So that was a few garbage bags of gear. And when I was in New York, I actually kept a pair of shorts. I was like, it's fine to have a pair of shorts. I really like the orange shorts. And I wore them to the gym one time in New York, and someone called me out on it. And I was like, all right, that's it. I actually officially have to get rid of all my Knicks gear, which was, again, that was tough. I think as long as you're not looking at it as I'm throwing away all the fandom that I had, I don't look at the experiences I had as a Knicks fan, as grueling as it was, as not something that I didn't cherish and appreciate. I will always love the 1990s New York Knicks. That will always be one of my favorite teams. I grew up watching them. John Starks will always be one of my favorite players. So us not playing the 90s Knicks has made it a lot easier to do this. Obviously being an owner has made the experience of being a Bucks fan a lot more personal, which has been fun. Now, if it was the Bucks versus the 90s Knicks on 2K, there might be a little bit of issue there, but luckily we don't ever have to worry about that.
Yeah, and I mean, from my standpoint, sort of a similar thing. I actually grew up, I was a Utah Jazz fan. I was a huge John Stockton fan, so it was cool seeing him at training camp this year, and kind of getting to relive a little bit of that. But it's funny working in this business and now kind of moving around a few different times, and you overcome your allegiances pretty quickly, and to the point. I mean, I live or die with what this team does now. So it's not too hard once you get in, once you're this involved to really become a true passionate fan. I gave up on the Sixers pretty quickly when I left Philly.
That's tough to do right now.
Yeah, not too tough to do. But I think the great thing for me is I was just a huge NBA fan. My allegiances to an NBA team weren't quite as strong as I'm a huge Cubs fan. If I went to go work for another baseball organization at some point, I don't think I could do it. But on the NBA side, I'm just such a huge fan of the sport that to be able to really have a team that I can be a part of and really be included in, that makes it very easy to become a live or die fan.
Yeah, it was interesting though. When my dad was a minority owner of the Nets, I did not switch allegiance. I was not a Nets fan when my dad became a minority owner of the team. I felt really it was weird. I felt really no allegiance to them. I think part of that had to do with, I don't think my dad was a big Nets fan, being a minority owner of the team. So I don't know if I don't know what, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. But I stayed a Knick fan during that. But I was shocked at how easy it was for me to come on board, become such a diehard Bucks fan right after the purchase.
Yeah.
It was interesting because for Dustin's love of the Cubs, that was my love of the Knicks. I grew up a basketball fan. Football wasn't as big a deal to me. Baseball wasn't as big a deal to me. The Knicks to me growing up were everything. So I was definitely I was surprised with how with my ability to be able to switch over, and I've never actually looked back. It's been pretty nice.
So one of the great things I've noticed being a Bucks fan since probably the late 90s when I was 10 and living in Madison, I used to drag my dad here from games, was the ownership change. It seems like there's just a lot of new energy. You guys care about winning a lot more from the outside looking in. I kind of get that vibe, and you've really made it a point to integrate yourselves into the community. Alex, I know you don't really know anything else because you came here when your father Mark and Wes came here, but Dustin, I'm interested to hear your perspective since you were inside the organization on what changes you've really seen.
Sure. I mean, it's really night and day from what it was before, and that's not to take anything away from sort of what the organization was, in the first couple of years I was here. Certainly, I think some of the biggest changes have just been, kind of the expectations and the culture from the top down. We were very set, kind of at the beginning on really being, we were the NBA team in town, and that's kind of, what the organizational structure was on how we presented ourselves. That was what it was. But when Mark and Wes and Alex and everybody came in, it really became about reintroducing ourselves and reintegrating into the community. And that is such a huge part of what we have to do, and kind of rebuild the fan base and start to be able to tell the story about what we want to be and what we're trying to be down the road. I think that's something that when I first got here was pretty clear that the fan base didn't really know who we were or what we were trying to do. We were never kind of giving people that sort of, they say in sports marketing a little bit, you can sell hope and you can sell championships, and we weren't really doing either. So for the new leadership to come in and really enable us to go out and present a plan for what we were trying to do, how we want to integrate ourselves into the community, just really changed everything. I mean, almost immediately. Kind of took the training wheels off a little bit and let us go out and be creative. And with that comes increased expectations too. So, I think that's a big change here, is just the kind of the pace of life and the expectations on the quality of work that we're doing is has really ramped up, and it's been, a great experience for everybody to really get out and not only be able to do more things, but to have those expectations of excellence that starts all the way through. Because if we're not, kind of keeping that consistent across, from the basketball side to the business side, you're not going to have alignment there. So that's been, I think, the biggest change.
And I think also just in fairness, the NBA has changed a lot since, I think, when the Senator first took over, going through the 90s, 2000s, and to where it is now. I think the NBA has become more of a business, and the way the business operations run is much more important than I think it was 10, 15 years ago. I think when you look at the NBA 10, 15, even 20 years ago, it was all basketball ops. Like, you had a ticket sales division, but really you were basically saying, like, our team needs to be good for us to be able to sell tickets. I think what's ended up happening is basketball and sports has become much more of an entertainment rather than purely sport. And I think that change, again, I think we kind of got lucky by buying in and being able to now, model the organization after that. In that sense, I think we were able to come in at the right time. I don't know what it would have been like to own a team 10, 15 years ago, but I do think, and Dustin was working in it, my guess is it was probably drastically different just from even how ownership viewed the business side. And I think how all owners viewed the business side of sports compared to what they do now.
Yeah, and I think to kind of piggyback off that, the way the NBA has changed in the last 5 years with additional revenue sharing and things like that, like there's a lot more accountability on the team from a league standpoint, and I think having that opportunity to really kind of make a clean change and readdress kind of the organizational things from the way the entire league operates and league works was a great opportunity. It's something that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we hear a lot in the media about kind of the negatives and the challenges of being in a small market. You hear that all the time. It's Milwaukee, players may not want to go there, etc. What are the advantages of being in a small market that the average person wouldn't really be aware of, maybe from a business standpoint or a team standpoint?
I think a lot of the things that people say are disadvantages are actually advantages. It depends on the player, right? Like, someone who wants the spotlight, wants to be in a city like New York, obviously is not going to want to be in Milwaukee, just because those are two completely different cities. It's two completely different cultures. And I don't look at it as any different as someone who wants to work in, I know plenty of people who want to work in New York. They want to live in New York. They care more about where they're living than necessarily what they're doing. And so they want to live in New York. And it is really hard to tell them, even if they had a great opportunity somewhere else, it's hard to pry them out. Those are not the type of players or even employees that we're going to be recruiting. We want people who fit with the culture, fit with the idea that, hey, all I want to do is play basketball and I want to win. And again, a lot of the advantages here, and you talk to a lot of the players, you talk to even Jason, what's great about being here is you can go out to dinner. You can walk on the street. I was with one of our guys for lunch the other day, and he said when he was going to dinner, he's in the middle of a bite and someone comes up to him like, hey, can I get a picture? That doesn't really happen here. I think the fans here are really respectful. I think they understand, these guys have lives too. That's not to say no one's ever asking for a picture, but I think that there's a lot of respect here for the athletes and I think for people's privacy, which in some places is, and for some guys it's an advantage, for some guys it's a disadvantage. I think the NBA, again, it's changed a ton. You look at social media, you look at just the way that everyone is connected. You don't need to now be in a big city to be marketable. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be in a big city to get the big endorsements. So I think because of that, I think there's a lot more onus now on being respected in your organization and, do I have a winning culture? I think that's what players and I think employees are caring about a lot more than, am I in New York, Chicago, or LA?
Yeah. And I think from a business side, the best part of being in a a market like this versus, a Philadelphia or New York or something where you have an opportunity to really get to know your fan base and be involved with so many things in the community that you can't necessarily when you're, a big fish in a bigger pond. But here, from, our staff getting involved in causes and things throughout the community to us being able to do events where we actually have, our fans have access to be able to talk to the players and see the players. Like, you just don't see that sort of thing in larger markets, and with that you sort of carry, because there isn't necessarily maybe as many things, and there aren't, two Major League Baseball teams and an NFL team and, various things. You have, a little bit more sense of pride that you can tap into in the community, which again has some responsibility, because if you're not upholding your end of the bargain on that, you can run into some challenges. But that's what is great for us, is we can really go out and use kind of the global platform of the NBA to shine a light on and kind of be the beacon for Milwaukee, and really provide that spotlight that you can't necessarily in a larger market.
Yeah. No, I mean, you do see the players out and about. Like, I was at Screaming Tuna the other day, and Jabari Parker's just sitting there waiting like a normal human being, and that wouldn't happen in New York or Miami or...
No, and it can't.
Places.
I mean, it can't. I mean, like, there's too many people in New York, and like a place like New York, Miami, LA, like, you can't just, go to like a local
Chipotle.
You just can't do that. John Henson yesterday, I saw him at Whole Foods, just walking around. No one was bothering him. Like, totally fine like that. And I think that's appealing to a lot of people. It's not appealing to some. Some people love the spotlight. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, again, I grew up in New York. I love New York. I can't blame anyone for wanting to live there. Milwaukee's also great. And I think, a lot of the guys who have come here have really, really enjoyed it. And I think they really, I think there is something about always having to be on and, always having to be, again, you're playing in front of 10, 15, 20,000 people all the time. People scream and want your autograph. It's nice to be able to have a life and have some privacy. And I think you're able to get that here. And I don't know if that's what it's like in all small markets. I know that's what it's like here. And I think that has a lot to do with the people of Milwaukee. I think it speaks volumes about the type of people who live here. Mm-hmm.
Can you guys touch on how, let's call it the Giannis effect, has kind of affected the organization? Milwaukee hasn't had a superstar for a long time. I don't think they've had an all-star since Michael Redd, maybe in 2002, 2000-ish.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So do you want to touch on that, how it might make things easier, just kind of the overall effect it has on the team?
No, I mean, when you look at the NBA, it's a superstar-driven league. There's no doubt about that. And I think, as we start to get guys, whether it's Giannis or Jabari or, the rest of these guys kind of building up and becoming faces a little bit, that's going to help us, just in a number of ways. And it already is something that we have somebody that we can go out and is readily identifiable in the market. And not just in a way that he's, out there scoring a lot, but he's got such a great story. He's, young. He's an exciting player to watch. It's not, he's not just standing in the corner shooting. Like, he's somebody that is fun to watch. And, that's certainly going to help us moving forward. And already, we start to see that sort of thing. But again, it goes back to, the other side of things, not only locally what it means, but, when you start to have players that are starting to get that kind of national or international attention. Again, that's a sense of pride for people in Milwaukee to be able to see, people, throughout the country wearing Giannis gear. My sister-in-law's son he's wearing his Giannis jersey out to practices and things, and people, recognize it and know it. They live in New York, So I mean, it's that sort of thing where we're able to really again kind of shine that spotlight to Milwaukee, and again as these guys start, making all-star games and that sort of thing, it definitely makes our job easier on the marketing side. Nothing makes you look like a genius more than, all-stars and winning. So, that'll certainly help.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just great having those type of guys who are not just really good at basketball, but who also respect the community, want to be a part of it, and really like being here. I think one of the things that makes Giannis, Jabari, Chris, Coach, such likable people in this community is because I think you can genuinely tell they like living here. And this isn't just like, oh, they're living here because they, play for the team, but it's, oh, they really enjoy it. And I think that makes it, easier for us to be able to market them. And again, the other thing is it's nice that they also all work hard and are really good people. I think, Giannis and Jabari, Jason, Chris, all those guys, they make it easy for us to be able to market them, which is great. I think in terms of how that effect works for us is, as Dustin said, it just shines light on the organization. It allows us to get coverage when, maybe we would have had to, work a little harder to be able to do so. It allows us to shine light on great causes that we're working on. It allows us to shine light on the team and a lot of the great things we're doing. And so having those type of people in the organization, there's no other way to put it, just makes life easier.
Yeah. I mean, you really start to be able to identify or create an identity around the organization. And in a way, especially the types of guys we have, like Alex was saying, it's, you don't find that kind of alignment very often. So, I mean, you look at an organization that everybody kind of puts up on a mantle, like San Antonio, where, again, a small market, but they had guys who, were those hard workers, great players. And you see that, I mean, they've developed over 20 years what they've been able to put together. And you kind of use that as a model, but you have to have the right kind of alignment on both the business and the player side. And with our guys, we have a story we want to tell on the court in terms of being, very energetic and fun to watch and youthful. But we also have, that very community oriented side. So, to be able to get players like Giannis and Jabari who see both sides of that is really going to help us as we really start to tell our story about what we want to be.
Yeah. Let's touch on the arena beginning of next season. What kind of effect is
Two
seasons.
18-19.
2018-19. All right. I wish it was next season.
So do we.
All right. 2018. What kind of effect is the arena going to have on the rest of the community?
I mean, from a community standpoint, it's not just the arena. It's the entire development that we're putting together. So by next year, we'll have the practice facility and parking garage done. And then the year after that, we'll have the arena and live block set. The live block will continue to put new things in there, but we should have the beginning stages of the entertainment block and then the full arena. And then again, you're creating the new living room of downtown. And I think that's what's really exciting about this whole development is Milwaukee it's got a lot of great areas and a lot of really fun pockets, but there isn't that one place to begin. There isn't that one living room, that one big gathering place. And so that's what we think we're going to be able to create. And I think we're going to be able to create a real neighborhood, which I think is interesting. The third ward was, kind of took a while to really spawn and kind of create itself. I think what's really cool about what we're doing is we're directly trying to create a neighborhood, and I think we're going to be able to do so. And along with that, I think it's just the jobs that we're going to be able to create, and making sure that we're creating good paying jobs. Those are the two things that we said at the outset was the most important. Was we want to create a place where people can live, work, and play 24/7, and we also want to be able to create a place that's going to create jobs and good jobs. And I think we're going to be successful in both. And I think that's really exciting. I think in our hope, we're kind of creating a new model for how these districts go. And so, I think in 3 years, you're going to see a drastically different, Park East. And in 5, 6, 7 years, they're going to see a drastically different downtown that's going to really transform, I think, west of the river. You're already seeing a ton of development happening, people buying up property around the arena site just in anticipation of what this area is going to become. And to me, that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more than the 41 nights a year that we have Bucks games and that sort of thing. And I think when you look, I mean, just physically at the city and what's going on, it's not often that you see, a swath of completely undeveloped land, dividing, right through the heart of a city. And so to be able to physically go in and kind of rebuild this and connect all the pieces of the city is going to be incredible what, people sort of see and are able to experience from that moving forward.
And I think what's going to be, and just lastly, I think what's going to be really cool about it is it got an interesting rap because it's considered the Bucks Arena. But we also have to remember, this is going to change Milwaukee in terms of the concerts that we're able to get, in terms of the comedy shows we're able to get. Anything that's going to be coming here, we think this is going to be something that we can program 200 times a year with the best shows. And that's what, right now, people like Beyonce, Bieber, Taylor Swift, they're skipping over Milwaukee. And you have to go into Chicago to go see them. Once this thing is built, our hope is that we're able to bring those concerts here. And so I think you're going to end up just seeing a new form of entertainment in Milwaukee that Milwaukee just hasn't had.
Yeah, it's not going to be Chicago to Minneapolis
Right.
anymore. We'll stop here. To touch on the new arena, I have a fan question from Brandon Chalker. How will VR be integrated into the new arena, if at all?
I think VR and a lot of these technological things, I don't want to say we're on a wait and see approach, but we want to make sure that any of that sort of infrastructure that we're bringing in is actually additive to the experience of what fans, come to do on an event night or a game night. So we don't want to go out and put all these VR installations in just so that we can go out and say we have, X amount of VR or this technology or that. We actually want to look through and design how the fan experience is going to be changed by using these things, as opposed to just being able to say we're the most technologically advanced arena in the country. Because those sorts of titles and that sort of thing can wear out pretty quickly. You get the nice buzz at the beginning, but we really want to look at it from the lens of fan experience, and I don't think we've completely figured that out yet. But we have a couple years to really decide what we want that to look like.
I don't think VR has figured that out yet. I think right now it's a really cool idea, and I'm sure some of the best tech companies are going to figure out great applications for it. But again, we have to remember, this is still an arena to go see live sports, to go see live concerts. You can. This is not walking into the Apple store and playing with gadgets. And so the main attraction is you are coming to this so that you can have an experience that you can't get at home. And that experience is watching basketball live, watching, Beyonce live. And so I think a lot of arenas, when they're doing this, they should remember that that is the experience. And, the second you say, hey, we're going to put this technology in, 5 years later, that technology is now old. And so I think our hope is, let's make sure we have all the fundamentals and everything that everyone needs. If there are some really cool stuff that we think we got to put in, we'll make sure it gets in there. But we're not going to just put technology, as Dustin said, we're not going to put technology in for technology's sake.
Yep. All right, another fan question, this one from Ian Abston. Alex, you once scored 72 points in an MAC basketball game. Has the fame gotten to your head?
First of all, it was 77, so I just want to get that.
It's a dick move by Ian.
Yeah. I know. Ian always trying to sell me short. That's classic.
Is there
Ian.
anyone on the other team?
There was a couple
Charles
people.
Burt's probably.
Yeah. There was. He was actually on my team during that. As the fame. No, luckily no one watches our MAC League games, so I have been able to steer clear of that.
We did end up taking the banner off the wall in the office, though.
Yeah.
It was got to be a little much, but
we had to put that up. Look, it's an accomplishment of a lifetime to be able to do that in a 4-on-4 quarter court basketball game. So I'm proud of it. But again, most importantly, my team won the championship that year. It's all about the win, not the individual stats.
Yeah, I can touch on this one myself. Back in if you don't mind me taking a question for myself. Back in 2013, I believe it was week 2 of the Spring League, I got a Player of the Week award. That's great. Pretty big accomplishment. It did get to my head a little. I remember I printed it out and put it on the refrigerator. Ian was my roommate,
right?
Obviously, and when you live with such a charismatic local celebrity and you get a one-up on him, sometimes you just got to let him know. I don't think he's got one of those yet.
No, and I make sure to tell him all the time when he tells me how much I suck that I scored 77 points.
So this is a good one. Has the level of team, from Kyle Crown, has the level of team grittiness went up since the arrival of Dellavedova?
I think so. I mean, we're going to have some training camp videos come out, which will be, actually by the time this airs, I'm sure they'll be out. That Delly has a great quote in it, which is he thinks that energy, sharing the ball, all that type of stuff is contagious. Whether good energy or bad energy, he thinks that type of stuff is contagious. So when you see someone diving on the ground for a loose ball, it makes you want to do that as well. When you see someone giving it 110%, it makes you want to go give 110%. So I think his arrival has brought a lot of maturity, grittiness, and leadership for us, which, again, that's what happens when you bring in a guy who just won a championship. He knows what it takes to win, and he's bringing that to our team, which, like the one thing, you sometimes try to tell them, hey, it's training camp. Like, let's make sure we have some left for the season. But that's how he plays, and I think that's what you want. You want guys who are going to play hard and give it their all the whole time, and I think that has had a contagious effect on the entire team.
And it adds a new accent to the roster, which is good.
Yeah, which has been great.
That's the Aussie accent.
And he's taken to the Packers. He had a great time at his first Packer game. I don't think he had a football team beforehand, so I think he's all in.
Definitely not in Cleveland.
No.
Final question I got for you guys. What can we expect from our rookie, Thon Maker?
From Thon? I think what you're going to get from him is, he's young. He's, 18 years old. I think what we're hoping for is some growth, maturity, learn the game, and be able to come in and give us, maybe 5 to 10 minutes of good quality basketball. The one thing about him is that I've seen, he's got great instincts. He's got good skills. He's obviously a little raw and a little thin. We've got to put some meat on that bone, but overall, I think Thon is gonna be able to come in, and you've seen in the preseason, he comes in and he gives you high energy minutes. And the one thing you can't teach is energy and instinct, and that's what he's got. So, when you've got someone who's going to play hard, has high basketball IQ, and has good instincts, you're going to get quality minutes. The one thing is also, and I think a lot of guys, when they first come into the league from college or high school, the game's a lot faster, it's a lot more skilled, and everyone is just as big, if not bigger than you. So he'll have some learning curve, he'll have some growing pains, but I do think he'll be able to come in this season and be able to give us some quality minutes off the bench.
Yeah, I think he just fits so well with that identity that we talk about building, and you can start to see that plan over the guys that have been drafted and brought in over the last couple of years. I mean, here's a guy who, yes, is a little bit raw and is 18 years old, but works so hard. I mean, Malcolm's the same way. I mean, you get these guys who are just, high basketball IQ and just willing to put in the work every single day and come in understanding that they have work to do to get to where they need to be, and that they're just going to fit in so well with the organization as a whole, and hopefully their skills will start to develop here quickly, and we'll get to see them producing on the court.
Yep. I got one more. Both of you guys are transplants. And this is a Milwaukee-based podcast. What do you enjoy most about living in Milwaukee? Or what were your biggest surprises coming here?
I think for me, the biggest surprise, and again, I grew up in Iowa. It's not like I grew up in a major metropolitan area, but there's nothing, coming from Philadelphia, a top 5, top 6 market, there's nothing in Philadelphia that you can't find here. It's just much easier and simpler to get around and do things. So you can have the exact same experiences. The restaurants are unbelievable. The music scene here is great. And you don't have to sit in traffic for an hour to get there and then, have to deal with parking. So, I mean, it's all the things you could possibly want out of a great metropolitan area with the kind of the small town ease.
Yeah, I'd say the thing that most surprised me was, the arts and restaurant scene here. I think it's got a very underrated art culture. The Marcus Center, being able to go see, Broadway shows, and I love going to Broadway. It's one of my favorite parts about New York. Being able to have a lot of those shows here is awesome. And I think the restaurant scene here it's really good. It's got a lot of really nice, niche restaurants, and I think for me, you're coming from like a New York, DC, and you're like, oh, like what's Milwaukee going to have? What am I going to be able to do? Milwaukee's got a ton to do here, and I just think it's got a really underrated, I think, arts and restaurant scene, and I think a really underrated nightlife. There's always something going on. And I think lastly is, the summers here are just absolutely incredible. New York, it just gets brutally hot. Like, you don't even want to walk around the street in the summer in New York. Whereas here, it's gorgeous. Now I know it's only for like 1 week, but it's that week. That week of summer is some of the best week I'll have ever.
All right, that's all I've got. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.